All right. I would like to call to order the Monday, May 17th meeting of the Monona City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder Core.
Here.
Alder Thomas.
Here.
Alder Groupie.
Here.
Alder Moore.
Here.
Alder Goforth.
Here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? We have them from the April 20th organization meeting, as well as our previous council meeting on May 3rd.
Move approval.
Second.
Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We have one appearance tonight, Phil DeVillers. Phil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Mary. I've been intimately interested in the goings-on and disposition of the San Damiano property for some time. I think the mayor is aware of this. I wrote several letters to the paper discussing my displeasure of how it was maintaining a tax-exempt status. Thankfully, the people of against the I forgot the group, the name of the group, I'm blanking on them now, brought a lawsuit, and long and the short of it, got the San Damiano put on the tax rolls, which is something that I was pushing for years. When I went down to contest my own property taxes, I wasn't really there to contest my property taxes. I'm fine paying property taxes. I think there was a federal judge that once said I have no problem paying property taxes. It's what gives us civilization. So my biggest beef was the San Damiano, a 10+ acre property with 1,000 feet of frontage, was paying zero property taxes for years, even though the last of the friars had vacated the property like 4 or 5 years ago. So that is a historical context. I'm glad it forced the friars' hand, and the city stepped in and did what I was hoping it would do, which would act as the intermediary and buy the property and hopefully hold it so that the community can be involved and determine its final use and disposition. Prior to this meeting, I did a little poking around in the interwebs, and I actually looked up the last referendum, big referendum we had for the school district. It was the $57 million referendum. It was broken in funded about 6 or 7 different things. The bulk of it went right down here on Cottage Grove Road to fund a new elementary school for about 33 million and change. Another 10 million went over to the Winnequa School, elementary school, for 10 million bucks to update that building, which probably was built in the 60s, for new windows, air conditioning, HVAC, that kind of stuff. And the great thing about referendums is they put out a ton of information so that the educated voter can look through it all and determine whether they want to vote for it or not vote for it. It's broken down by what it's used for. They give renderings, they give budgets. There's just a ton of information, and it's awesome. One of the most useful things that they do is spell out exactly what it's going to cost a person. And back in 2018, when this was done, the referendum for 57 million would have cost the average homeowner in the city of Monona, with a $362,000 house, which is a reference that the finance director uses when he was talking about the San Damiano. It would have cost the average property owner about $105 a year in additional property taxes. What I find interesting is when the city council approved the purchase of this property, there was one line that was used. Seems like they use the authority of, whereas the Common Council hereby finds and determines that the project is within the city's power to undertake and therefore serves as a, quote, principal purpose, as that term is defined in section 67041B of Wisconsin statutes, blah, 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 blah. So my point is this. We have a referendum 4 years ago we asked the entire community, both of Monona and Cottage Grove, because it's a shared school district, to vote on a $57 million referendum, which would cost the average homeowner in Monona $105 a year. Here, six people of the town, of a population of 7,827, voted to spend $8.6 million. And guess what? It is the same cost. It's about $104 a year that it's adding to the property taxes. And that, according to the finance director, is if you assume we actually do get the $2 million that Dane County would like to give us it as a grant. And that is completely uncertain now that COVID has destroyed everybody's budget. So who knows if we're even going to get that $2 million. If we don't get that $2 million from the Dane County grant, it actually costs the average homeowner in Monona $135 a year. Nobody voted on this. I shouldn't say that. 6 people voted on this. I just like to also add that if you get a parking pass into a state park or forest, it costs you $28 a year. That gets you into any park and state forest. Here you're asking the residents to pay $104 a year, maybe $135 a year without voting on any of this. Oh, by the way, if you want to get that state pass and you're over the age of 65, it's actually $13 a year. It's a pretty good bargain. Not only that, the purchase price of $8.6 million, you can't even do anything with that property down there. There's no parking lot. There's no facilities. There's no beach access. You're talking about
you have about 2 minutes left of your time.
Thank you, Mary. You're probably talking another $2 or $4 million that needs to be spent to make it even remotely usable. So what I'm addressing actually is really water under the dam. You guys have made the decision. You went ahead. If you asked your average Monona homeowner if they realized that their property taxes just went up $104, they probably wouldn't know that. Moreover, we borrow interest right now. We borrow money at about the 10-year rate. It's about 1.67%, which is what was quoted here. That's essentially the 10-year treasury rate, given that we have a good debt rating. If you look in the last 3 years, that's been twice as high. So you can essentially say this could be and might possibly be much higher. What I really want to address is going forward, this resolution for this memorandum of understanding between the Friends of San Damiano. And I could spend the next hour, if you'd like. I redlined the whole thing, and this thing just reeks of impropriety. What really got me started is I was listening to the Monona radio the other day, and they had the most deceptive ad, if you will, running. They made it sound like it was Picnic Point and that we needed to spend the money to save Picnic Point. This has never been a public park. It's never had public use. Nobody's ever had, no resident of Monona has been asked to vote on this, yet 6 people decided to go ahead and spend $8.6 million. My problem is one person, along with the city council, is now trying to jam through their vision of what should be used for this land and saddling 7,827 people with the cost. I hope that there are some plans coming up and it is put to a referendum so all the residents, not just Andrew and the city council, have input as to how the land should be used. And like I said, reading this resolution scares the shit out of me. This should never be approved, ever.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I would just make 2 statements. First of all, I don't think there's any question we're going to get the money from the county. We're just in the final stages of negotiating the easement contract with them. And also the 100,000, I think the $105 for the school district referendum was per 100,000. So actually it's between 300 and 400 yearly payment for a.
That's not true. I went straight to the website and got their information. It was $29 for every $100.
That's our borrowing. Thank you. Okay, we will move on. Brian, do you have any other public hearing or public appearance requests?
We have not received any other ones.
Okay. Thank you. There is no public hearing. There is no consent agenda. I'm moving on to council action items, and I would like to ask the council if it's okay if we move up item 1 or 2A from new business regarding our new chief, Brian Cheney Austin's contract, so that he doesn't have to sit here all night and he can go out and enjoy the nice weather. So is it okay with everybody if I move that up to consider right now, and then we'll get back to our regular order of agenda?
You need a motion to take it out of order.
I don't, well, I will when we get to that, but
Okay.
not to move it up in the agendas.
Okay.
So it's okay with everyone. However, I do Motion 2A, consideration of resolution 21-5-2497, approving an employment agreement for the position of police chief put forth by the city administrator. And this is start for immediate approval. So I do need a motion for that.
I'll move to take the item out of order.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second. Who was the second?
Nancy?
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Is there a motion to
Move
approve?
approval.
I'll second.
All right. Brian Gatto.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is a standard employment agreement like we have for all of the department heads. It's been reviewed and approved by Mr. Cheney Austin and our city attorney. Just that one item to note, Mr. Cheney Austin will be starting with us on June 1st. So that's recorded here in this document, and happy to take any other questions that you might have about it, but we're happy to have Brian on board.
Do we have any questions? None? Alder Kur.
I have a question about the salary. What was the range?
The range was 95 to 115.
150?
95 to 115.
Okay.
Anyone else?
On the soundbar.
I'm sorry. Did someone say something? Jennifer, did you have something else?
I just wanted to bring up that when we talked with budget earlier this year, we had talked about evaluating salaries for our staff.
Mhm.
I'm noting that this is a significant salary. Not undeserving, I'm sure, but it's significant for us. And I know that there's a lot of long-term staff who are not in this range. And we've been promised, I think, twice now that we were having a review of salaries, and that hasn't been done. And I'm frustrated and hope that that will be taken up and at least discussed before we do the next budget. I think that we are running the risk of losing staff because of salaries. And I think that it's important for us to consider.
Okay. Actually, I think we've mentioned this at council meetings before, that Brian Gatto was involved in the Dane County Cities and Villages Association did do a salary survey late last year, and we got the results of that earlier this year, and we will be taking that into consideration when we're doing budget planning this year. So we are waiting for the results of that survey.
We'll incorporate that plus some other information as we get into the budget season this summer.
Yep. Anyone else? Alder Wood.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, as I had mentioned this also at Finance Committee, to welcome Brian to the city of Monona, and that June 1 is going to be a very historic date in the city's history, with the purchase of San Damiano being final that day and the hiring, starting the employment of Chief Cheney Austin. And then I just want a personal note, as many of you know, I have a gay son. And so to have having us hire a gay police chief means a lot to me. So that's all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alder, go for it.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to congratulate Brian Cheney Austin for coming here, and we're excited to see your leadership. And I really want to give a big thank you to Interim Chief Sarah Duman for holding down the fort and keeping us safe. And I felt she did a great job, and I'm just really grateful to her for her service.
Anyone else? Alder Moore.
Yeah, I would certainly echo what's already been said, as I also posted on my Alder Facebook page. I'm very grateful to Interim Chief Duman and the rest of the force, who have been short-staffed now for a long time. Hopefully something we can address soon. And just really, Brian, welcome aboard. We're really happy to have you here. For all kinds of reasons. but you're, I mean, just listening to the forum that was done and it's, your leadership is clear and we're really excited to have you here.
Anyone else? Brian, would you like to say anything?
Just going to ask that, Mayor. So thank you. And thank you, alders as well. Say, listen, after today, you should probably get an email or text or call from me wanting to sit down. I don't do coffee, so we'll have to find an alternative. I've somehow lasted this long without coffee. But I want to first thank you for the welcome. And then also echo you in thanking Interim Chief Duman. She and I have had the pleasure to sit down on a couple occasions and have had, there she is, hi Sarah, and I've had some exchanges. And let me tell you, the role of a police chief is a challenging one, and I haven't even stepped in the door yet. So I give Interim Chief Duman all the credit that all of you are providing her. She certainly deserves that, and I very much look forward to working with Sarah, Kurt, and all the other officers and staff at Monona PD. It is a great department, and as I said during this process, I would not put in if I did not think that this was a great community, and if I didn't think that this was an outstanding department. They've done good things. We're going to do greater things, and I hope that you will allow me to be a little innovative at times. I can be somewhat stubborn at times, so forgive me for that in advance, but the stubbornness comes because I'm eager for change, and I'm eager for doing things that are new and fresh and trying it out. And so I'm really looking forward to working with Sarah and others and all of you and all of my now extended Monona family. And it's thrilling. If I may, I promise I'm not going to go on a soapbox here, but Alder Wood did mention something that is very, very touching. And as I said, in finance and personnel, I would not be here were it not for those footsteps who walked before me. So I certainly need to give credit for those powerful and inspirational leaders of color and those within the LGBTQ community and all of those who support them, which I know includes all of you. So thank you for doing what you do. And I look forward to working with you in the coming days and years. Trust me, it'll be years. I've got a long time.
Glad to hear that. Alder Thomas.
Yeah, I just a comment. This is a really challenging times for police departments. And I am so proud that we have such a good leadership team, that we have such good officers, and that we can handle this because policing will be learning and challenging and changing. And so I'm very grateful as a community that we have such an outstanding department with such outstanding leadership. And thank you, Sarah, for all you've done to manage. And I expect you to step up like you've always done.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you, Brian and Sarah. I'm looking forward to working with the both of you going forward. So I guess we need to vote on the contract. Joan, you want to call the roll?
Yes. Alder Goforth.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Kerr.
Aye.
Alder Thomas.
Aye.
Alder Groupie.
Aye.
Alder Moore.
Aye.
Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you all. Have a good evening. Thank you.
too.
Good night.
Aye.
I'm going to move back to unfinished business. Item 1A, consideration of resolution 21-5-2490, award of contract for 2021 street resurfacing project put forth by the Public Works Director. Is there a motion to approve this?
Move approval.
Second.
And
Thank you, Mayor. We are back tonight for the second read for this bid award. The May 5th Public Works Committee did approve the recommendation for this bid. So in summary, Payne and Dolan provided the low bid. The price is $92,410.70.
Any questions? Okay, hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Moore,
Aye.
Alder Goforth,
Aye.
Alder Wood, Alder Wood,
Aye.
Alder Coor,
Aye.
Alder Thomas,
Aye.
Alder Groupie,
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next, item 1B, consideration of resolution 21-5-2491, award of contract for Winnequa Road Traffic Calming Project, also put forth by the Public Works Director. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
I'll second.
Dan?
Thank you, Mayor. This also received the recommended approval from the Public Works Committee at the May 5th meeting. The low bid contractor was Raymond P. Cattell. They provided the bid of $58,654.
Questions, anyone? Alder Wood?
When can we expect the work to be done or start?
Basically, it'll take probably about 3 weeks to get the contract signed. I don't have the start and end dates in front of me, but we usually like to set these dates for to be completed by Labor Day. But I'll verify that, Alder Wood, tomorrow, and I'll let all of council know what the end date is for this one.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Goforth, did you have a question?
I guess I do. I saw the last public safety meeting and I heard Chief McMullen talking about the speed humps and how hard they are on his trucks. And so I was just, and when I biked down through the Schluter Beach area yesterday. And so the second, the Waterman Way hump, is that basically just west of Waterman Way? Is that where that's going to be located?
It's going to be right just west of the intersection. It's going to be at the corner of the park, crossing into Schluter Park, and there will be a ramp there with a sidewalk leading into the park.
Okay.
And then on the Waterman Park, we'll have a ramp and a panel there too for a future sidewalk.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to make sure that, it seemed like with the hump at Outlook and then the rapid flash beacon and then another hump, just wanted to make sure that that was seemed fully warranted or not excessive. What were your thoughts? And I know we did discuss this last year's budget meeting, but I just thought I would bring it up just after hearing Chief McMullen's comments.
Alder Coor, did you have a?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Alder Groupie.
Just for the public record, I appreciate this being brought up because I know we discussed different types of speed humps at the time and those which would be easier on, fire and EMS vehicles and what the Public Works Department thought would be the appropriate choice for the intersection. But the idea of the Waterman Way speed hump is also to provide a pedestrian access point between Waterman Way and Schluter Beach Parks. And so that's, I think, a future placeholder for connecting and expanding the parks and just sort of the connection and accessibility between the two.
Alder Moore.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I, after hearing Chief McMullen's comments at the last public safety meeting, I reached out to Dan. Dan and Jerry talked to each other as is appropriate, which is, what I wanted to see happen. And the treatment that's being done is not a traditional hump in the sense that would bottom out the safety vehicles. It's bigger than my understanding, Dan, and you can correct me, but my understanding is it's a bigger or different trajectory than what we did in McKenna, or different layout than what we did at McKenna, but not a traditional speed hump that would bottom out cars. Is that fair to say?
Right. Yeah, this will not be a speed bump,
right?
Like parking lot type. It won't be that. The one on McKenna is less effective because it has more of a tapered approach, which really I mean, I think if you're doing like 33 miles per hour, you'll probably feel that then. This is the standard, industry standard speed hump with the parabolic approach. And you see them all over Madison. Their fire vehicles, the plow trucks, garbage trucks, they all go over those, similar to what vehicles will in Monona. But it's the standard design, and it's a more rounded approach to it, which will slow the vehicles down. And I think that's what this city council had in mind back in October when they approved this style of speed hump. And Jerry and I did communicate that, and I believe he's fine with that. I'm not sure if he was thinking it'd be a different style, but I believe this is what everybody wanted back when the capital budget was approved.
Anyone else? Okay, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Groupie,
Aye.
Alder Moore,
Aye.
Alder Goforth,
Hi.
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Alder Coor,
Aye.
Alder Thomas.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next, item 1C, consideration of ordinance 5-21-739, an ordinance repealing chapter 168-3 of the Code of Ordinances requiring registration and licensing of bicycles put forth by the Public Safety Committee. Is there a motion to approve this?
Move approval.
Second.
Chief Duman, were you going to address this?
I am. Thank you. This was brought forth to the Public Safety Committee as a result of the City of Madison also repealing their requirement for bike registration. And so it was discussed extensively at Public Safety, and the decision was made to move forward with repealing the Monona requirement for bicycle registration. There are 2 national registries that Madison has put forth, but they have not made any specific recommendation for either one of those. And I know at the last meeting it was brought up there might be some concerns about information sharing. So at this point in time, Monona isn't recommending one over or either, I guess, of the national registries, but do believe it's in the best interest of our community to move forth with repealing the ordinance.
Questions, anyone? Alder Groupie.
Just a comment, I believe I shared at the last meeting. I appreciate Alder Goforth bringing this to the attention of the council. And I think it's an appropriate move to make, especially in light of Madison leading the way. So thank you, and to the Public Safety Committee as well.
Alder Coor.
I fully support that we repeal this. I hope that we don't expend resources if we do decide to go with recommending a third party to do so, being that so few people register their bikes anyways, and because most of the bike shops that sell high-end bikes already recommend that folks use this service. I just don't see the need for us to promote it as well.
Anyone else? Alder Goforth.
Yeah, I do agree with Alder Coor's comments there. I don't think there's any need for us to formally recommend anything. I mean, we can certainly encourage people to go online and find a registration if they would like to. I did want to just point out a couple of typos in the ordinance, though I forgot to last time. In the ordinance title, the word bicycle is misspelled, and it can be tricky. So I've done it. And then in the second whereas, it says vastly underutilized, but residents and dealers, and that should be by residents and dealers. It's that choice of having friends or pointing out typos. And so I went with the typos on this one. But yeah, I'm really excited to see this moving forward. It's, saving a little ink off the books. And, I think it's a good measure, an equitable measure. So thanks to the Public Safety Committee for their work and conversation on this, and to you as well, Sarah Duman.
Anyone else? I don't think it would hurt, at least to inform people that there are these other sites where you can register your bicycles. I, for one, didn't know anything about them, and I have a feeling there's probably other people who aren't aware that they can do that either. So, Alder Thomas?
Yeah, we have WVMO and we have the city newsletter. It's not like we're going to expend a lot of money or energy, but I think we do have some responsibility to educate and inform.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, if there's nothing else, then all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item 1D, consideration of resolution 21-5-2493, approving a memorandum of understanding between the Friends of San Damiano and the City of Monona for fundraising activities. Okay, we brought this forth last time. As you know, the Friends of San Damiano are involved in fundraising for both purchase and maintenance and capital improvements for the San Damiano property. And we wanted to get to have an official agreement with them in terms of their role and the role of the city. That's what this MOU is about. It has been vetted quite heavily by our city attorney. I think that some couple of questions have been raised, and I know that Friends President Andrew Kitzler forwarded the bylaws of the Friends to everyone, along with a link to the names of all their board members, which are on their website. This morning or yesterday, he forwarded the acceptance, their official determination letter from the IRS. I think we received an email with questions about whether or not that was official. It was just approved a couple of weeks ago, and he is checking into the registration with the state of Wisconsin for charitable fundraising designation, which I've done that for other organizations, and at least it didn't used to be very complicated, so I wouldn't think it would take very long. Is there a motion to approve this, I guess?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Any questions or any further questions? Alder Moore.
Yeah, just as a point of clarification, while we received word a couple of weeks ago from the IRS, just to clarify that is backdated to at the time that Friends of San Damiano was incorporated. The IRS made it very clear from the get-go that because of COVID, they were very much behind the 8 ball in terms of the review and formalizing any new 501c3s. So it is backdated as per the letter that Andrew Kitzler sent out to us earlier today.
Alder Groupie.
I would just say I'm grateful to, I think, former Alder / FOSD president, Alder Kitzler, former Alder Kitzler has been very gracious and thoughtful in his responses and promptness in returning, responses to our questions and to constituents' questions about the property and about the Friends organization. I appreciate that he has been so swift in his responses. I would also say that I consider this to be a much different situation in comparison to a school referendum. And I'm very excited about proceeding with this partnership.
Anyone else? City Administrator Gatto?
Yeah, so it was referenced earlier, there was a couple questions since our last city council meeting. So I just wanted to bring those forward for the city council for their discussion with the Friends president. So one question was, would the Friends be agreeable to doing more of a quarterly release of their financial statements to the city? The language in the agreement as it sits today is the city can ask for those documents at any time, but I think the question was, could be on a more standardized schedule on a quarterly basis. Then there was a question as to whether or not the Friends could do a yearly audit of their financial statements. And then a question about if the city could be listed as a sole recipient of net funds raised by the organization. So I don't know if Mr. Kitzler would be able to address those questions.
Andrew?
Sure. Yep. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know. I responded to Brian. I don't know if that was passed along to the council or the alders, but I mean, we are agreeable that upon request that every quarter we can supply, our income statements. We're more than happy to do that. We also expect to share information at the steering committee meetings of income, our balance, as well as funds raised, pledges and gifts. So we're more than happy to be inform the city about that. In addition, there's the 990 form that all nonprofits are required to submit every year to the IRS, which provides a great detail of information. So that will be something that the city will have access to as well. As far as a financial audit, organizations like us are not legally bound to have a financial audit. Audits can be very expensive, and we are a small organization at this time. And so what we are committed to is this past year, we had Peter McKeever, our lawyer and our attorney, fill out the 990, but moving forward, we're going to have a third party do our 990 form as well as a financial review. So we are committed to doing that as well. And then as far as requiring the city to be the sole recipient, we cannot legally do that as a nonprofit organization. So that language in particular in the dissolution clause was taken from the IRS code. And in that, the city would qualify as a qualified recipient. However, we have to protect our legal response and financial responsibility to our donors and the donors' intent. So we would not be able to do that legally without risking ourselves as an organization to lawsuits and different things like that. Now, one thing that would make it open to a conversation would be the city making a formal action that would be in line with our mission and our donors' mission of protecting and preserving 100% of the property as a public park. But until that happens, we would not be able to legally do that at this time. So,
Alder, go forth.
Yeah, thank you. I come at this as a, nonprofit professional for 10 years. So I have a few questions. I do thank you for sending over the bylaws, because as your foundational documents and your governing documents, those are incredibly important to have those really shored up. And I mean, I do understand you're a small nonprofit, but you could potentially be handling millions of dollars. So I personally feel like an annual CPA audit is prudent. Most nonprofits, 501c3s do that process, even if they're small. So I just think that might be wise. I'm just thinking of risk mitigation and, because if something were to go sideways, it would be a PR nightmare for the city as well. And so I know your organization is separate. So I just feel like it's prudent to bring these things forward. I definitely like the idea of quarterly financial reports, just so we're in the loop on how things are going, because we're constantly getting those questions about how much has been raised and we don't know. So when I was going through the bylaws, I noticed a few things. Number one, your bylaws don't state a maximum number of people on your board. And so you should have that in there. You do talk about a minimum of 3. Probably for the size, a smaller nonprofit, you want to look at like a 11 to 13 number or a 13 to 15. You need an odd number as a maximum number. So I would add that in. One thing that did concern me as well in the bylaws, it says, as far as their terms go, that it says that they can hold office for 3 years, but you don't have any term limits in there. The term limits actually say they can be officers until they die, they resign, or they are removed by other directors. So typically you don't do that because you want diverse representation and you want new voices to come in through time. And so I would definitely think that's something that needs to be addressed. You probably, what's standard is 3 consecutive terms, then they can take a year off and then they can come back. But having directors in place until death is pretty alarming to me.
that's not standard. And so I would like to see that changed. I also noticed that it seems like you need maybe some tighter financial controls. Your bylaws say that the president, okay, it says basically that checks and drafts need to be signed by officers, but it should specifically state what officers have access to your bank account. So right now it just says all of your directors have access to your bank account. So typically you'd probably want to say the president and the treasurer. So I'd like to see that shored up as well. And then I saw that it says that you can take loans if you want to at your discretion. I was just curious, like, why would you take loans? And what, is there a thought of like a need for taking loans in the future?
So actually, when the Friends was originally created, this was prior to the city purchasing the property. So we had set the Friends up to be an organization that could potentially step in and purchase it and take out a loan if necessary. And much of this language is actually standard language for a nonprofit as well. So we don't have any intention on taking out a loan at this point, but certainly having that flexibility as an independent organization is important.
Okay, I would say, you know, I can't foresee why you would need to take out a loan, but maybe that's something that should be city approved as well, if you're going to keep that in there, just as a thought. And then I was curious if, like, how your board members were selected, because I just noticed that there's not a lot of diversity there. And I was just curious about that process. You know, board development is usually pretty strategic. You want a broad set of skills. I was just wondering if you could tell me a little about that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're continuously trying to develop new board members. So if any of you have any ideas or if you know of anyone that would be interested, feel free to send them out. But you know, it was originally a few concerned citizens that reached out and said, hey, we want to protect and preserve this property because we do not want development on it. And so that was the impetus for the original 3. And then we've had people raise their hands. So initially, that's how it has been, is people have raised their hands and wanted to get involved. But now moving forward, we've been much more considerate. So for example, we're working on recruiting someone from the Ho-Chunk Nation. We're working to recruit other diversity on the board as well. So we are, as we're expanding, we're only at 7 board members. I think it's 5 community or advisory board members, but we now finally have a structure set up so that we're proactively recruiting for board development. I wanted to touch on term limits because I see where you're coming from with that for sure. We did not want to include that initially as we started up and got running because we didn't want somebody to cap out for one reason or another, at least initially, but that is something that at least I personally have noted prior to this conversation, but will note again that I would like to bring up at some point when we're a larger board, again, shooting for around probably 15.
Okay, excellent. And then I noticed in a couple places, it says that board members may be compensated. So I wasn't clear if it's a volunteer board or if board members are actually compensated. It wasn't.
It's a volunteer board. I think the compensation language comes that if we had to drive somewhere for a meeting or something of that sort, that you would be reimbursed. But again, compensation on 990 forms are always listed, bylaws and nonprofits are always listed as well, that compensation is possible.
Okay. Well, I've actually never seen that, actually.
I should be clear, there's no intention to have compensation to the board members, though.
You might want to take that language out. It is in 2 different areas saying that the board members may or will be compensated. And then I was curious as well, section 6 talks about your annual meeting. And it says, or I was just curious if, and I don't know if you've determined if you're going to have a membership model yet, or.
No, the current plan is there's no membership model.
No membership. Okay. Okay. That I was going to ask if for the annual meeting, if the public was invited or if members are invited, or is that just a director's meeting?
At this point, it's just a director's meeting.
Okay. All right. Let me make sure. There is one section in the bylaws where it talks about members, and it had a question mark. So I think it just didn't get taken out in the last edit. I will find that for you specifically. Well, I'm gonna have to find it. I've got it here in my notes. Okay, and then let's see. Oh yeah, you might want to, in Article 4, it talks about your officers. And you talk about having 3 minimum officers, but then you talk about 4 positions, the president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. So you might want to just get that short up a little bit. And then
Yeah, that's a good note. I'll say when the bylaws were drafted, we only had 3 board members.
yeah, I caught that. Yeah, I think that clears up all of my comments. I personally feel like with all of these edits that you just need to do one final draft, I think, of your bylaws. I feel like this is a little premature to approve this tonight for me. Because like I said, this is your governing documents, your foundational documents. I've been living and breathing bylaws for the past 10 years, and it is really important to have them just very clear. So for me, I feel like you could do one more brush up, and I think we'd have enough time possibly to get this before the next, or by the next meeting.
Hey, Alder Cooper, did you have something?
Well, as a point of order, I have a question for Attorney Cole. So at the end of the day, what responsibility does Friends of San Damiano have to the city?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure. At the end of the day, what responsibility does Friends of San Damiano have to us? What do they owe us at the end of the day? I mean, and entering in this memorandum of understanding, what are we binding ourselves to?
Well, we're really not binding ourselves to much. We're binding ourselves to cooperating with them, to facilitate fundraising. We're agreeing in the MOU that the fundraising efforts, to the extent people approach us, we will coordinate with the Friends, and that the Friends will coordinate with us. And then there's the agreement on governance, to have the committee then that will sort of jointly keep both sides apprised. But we do have to remember, at the end of the day, the Friends they're a separate organization, and they can have whatever governing documents they want. And with all due respect to Alder Goforth, I think her points are very well taken. The city's really not in any position to dictate the governing documents for the Friends, although they certainly could take those suggestions. But I do think it's worth keeping in mind, even without this MOU, nothing stops a group of people like the Friends from going out and raising money and donating it to whomever they wish, whether it's the city or toward the purchase of the park or something else. Their only obligation really lies to their donors and to the Internal Revenue Service.
Thank you.
Alder Moore and then Alder Thomas.
Yeah, I was just going to say, with all due respect to Alder Goforth as well, I, as someone who's spent 40 years in the nonprofit sector and has written 30 or 40 bylaws for nonprofits in that work, I realize it may not be a perfect document, but frankly, that's not the purpose of this resolution. And as you know, as we all know, the city has dozens of Friends groups that don't even have bylaws or formal agreements. And so this is really a significant step. And frankly, as it was happening, you know, I certainly thought about apologizing to the Friends of the Library and the Friends of the Educational Foundation and a million other friends groups that we have in the city, Friends of the Park and Rec and all the other friends groups, thinking, oh my God, are we opening a Pandora's box in terms of MOUs between friends groups and other city, you know, other citizens who raise money for the benefit of our city. And so I would just say, I don't find the bylaws to be germane to this particular discussion in this resolution. As much as I appreciate some of the feedback, I would urge us to support it.
Alder Thomas, and then Alder Ruby.
Yeah, just one concern on my part. The issue, if someone comes to the city and wishes to donate money, and maybe they're going to do it in their will, maybe they won the lottery, and we're going to turn them over to the Friends, but what if they don't, what if they want to deal with the city? How does that work?
They can deal with the city.
Yeah.
I mean, we have an MOU that says we will coordinate with the Friends, but if a donor was insistent on wanting to deal with the city could certainly do that and it would not violate the MOU.
Thank you.
Alder Groupie, you were next, right?
Just very briefly, I have 0 years of experience in the nonprofit sector. I just want to say, I think it's, you know, whether or not it's relevant to the city or germane to us to be able to comment on this, having public access to these questions and their answers is important. I'm glad that we've talked through some items that will potentially make Alder Goforth and other people in the community more comfortable with this engagement and this collaboration, because I think it's going to be very important moving forward. And that's really just my only comment.
Okay, anyone else? Alder Goforth.
Yeah, I did find the one piece. It's on page 5, Article 4, Section 2, under election. You have it Board of Directors or members ? So you just want to pull that out. That's that one piece. I did want to ask if is the Friends group making any promises about us not developing this land in lieu, you know, to get donations? I have concerns about potentially, you know, hamstringing us when we go through a public input session and find out, you know, even through financial feasibility studies and what, you know, the future plans are for this property, and worrying about any promises that might have been made for large donations.
So the city has ultimate say. They're the owners of the property and they can do what they want with the property. We as a Friends organization, our mission is to preserve and protect the whole property as a public asset and as a park. So when we go to donors and we have donors coming to us, they are donating with contingency that it is a park. So we do have some donations, significant donations that would have to be returned if it is not a park. Now, what's in the park is a whole other topic of conversation, but the city is the one making those decisions.
Any other questions? Nothing? Okay, well then I guess we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
I'm going to say present.
Not sure if it's really legitimate to always say present. Is it, Mr. Cole? This has happened before, and Bill, could you address when that's appropriate? I don't know.
Because I just stated that I felt like this was a little premature. I mean, we've discussed this one other time. Has this been worked through a committee?
There is not a committee appropriate to work this through.
Okay.
Bill, could you just address the question of I'm not sure. I know that periodically people abstain from votes because they might have a conflict of interest with them.
Right. The general, and this is Robert's rules of order. This is not state law in any regard. but generally speaking, any representative, in this case, the board, has an obligation to represent their constituents. And that's generally meant to take a vote, cast a vote on a topic. So it would be either in favor or against. When there are situations where a person feels that they cannot fairly and impartially cast a vote, whether it be through a conflict of interest or a other reason, they will abstain from that. Casting present is I think that's a phenomenon in Congress. And I can't speak to it. I know they have their own procedural rules. I believe it's a way for a congressperson to not abstain by just stating that they're present, because they're, in all honesty, they're stating the obvious. In local government, it's generally viewed as an elected official should act for their constituents, either in favor or against, or abstain if they have a good faith reason for not taking a position.
Alder Wood, did you have?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, well, I don't disagree with Bill's interpretation of Robert's Rules of Order, but my understanding has always been, as alders, it's up to us whether we vote yes, no, abstain, or vote present, which to me means essentially the same thing, declining to vote on it because you don't feel, for whatever reason. And Alder Goforth has explained her reason in this instance, and while I didn't agree with her on that vote, I agree, I think she has a right as an elected official. That's her way of representing her constituents, that she has a right to vote present. So,
and I would be happy to change that to abstain if you would prefer. I just feel uneasy. I feel like it's a little premature to be doing this.
Alder Thomas and then Alder Moore.
Well, the phenomena of present in all of my years, I guess I've never seen it happen before this year. So if it's a good thing to do, it was. I don't know, Doug. I just don't remember I don't remember it ever happening in the past. People voted. You had to make a choice. And if you had a conflict, you abstained. But voting present doesn't represent anything. I mean, I just don't know what that represents. And I guess, I mean, do you recall it happening in the past, Alderwood? No.
Not specifically, I guess, but again, I mean, I think it's up to each of us to figure out how we best represent our constituents. And I would not, I might do it. I've done it differently than Alder Goforth has done on the votes, but I think it's a legitimate position for her to take. So that's my 2 cents.
Alder Moore.
Yeah, I guess I just just wanted to say I'm not going to pass judgment one way or another on all the Goforth's votes. What I wanted to say, as an ex officio member of the Friends of San Damiano, which is to say I'm a non-voting member of the board, because I am passionate about San Damiano and what it represents for this community, is that with all the kind of buzz that's gone on around Friends of San Damiano in terms of who they are and who they represent and how diverse they are and all of that, to me, what's been lost is there's a group of citizens that have stepped forward and said, we're going to work our butt off to raise significant dollars so that this can be saved as an asset for this community. And I think there's a great deal of gratitude owed that there's a group of people and a group of very talented people that are willing to do this. And I just want to be on record as saying that I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for the incredible amount of volunteer time and energy that's gone into it, as I am with any nonprofit organization. It is a, backbreaker to get a nonprofit up and running, to find the right people, to raise the kind of dollars that they're talking about raising. And so I'm just really grateful for all the citizens who have stepped forward already to donate, which is far more than the board of directors. We're talking about hundreds of residents and non-residents at this point, and significant dollars. And I just want to express my gratitude to the Friends of San Damiano for stepping forward in the way that they have.
Okay. All right, Alder, go for it. And
Yes.
let me just say, I think the established vote here is five in favor, 1 present. So I think the vote's done. So, okay, Alder, go for it.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm not grateful. I never said that. So I think you were maybe inflecting a little, but what I'm saying is I felt this was premature and this could have warranted a little more discussion. And if you remember, maybe 3 months ago, I voted with an abstention and y'all chided me and said I had to vote present. So I was trying to get ahead of y'all, but either way, I'm comfortable with my vote, and I feel like a little more discussion on this, especially the fact that a board member onto San Damiano, the Friends of San Damiano, can be there until death. That has me concerned. So, and as a city representative, I feel it is my duty to mitigate risk and any, PR debacles that might happen due to those bylaws and how those affect us. And so I've said my piece.
Okay.
Have at it.
Thank you. And I just wanted, I'd never asked Bill about the present vote before, so I was just curious. I would remind you though, what we're voting on is the MOU and not the bylaws of the Friends. So.
I know.
Okay, let's move on to new business. Item 2B, consideration of resolution 21-5-2496, authorizing the recording and posting of public meetings during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is put forth by the Community Media Committee. Alder Thomas?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure why this isn't under old business, because we've discussed this twice, at least twice on this board. And in lieu of that, and in lieu of the time, I would move to suspend the rules and take this item out of order.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Move
Nay.
approval.
Okay, so we have 5 ayes, 1 nay. I think, is that correct?
I'm sorry, the nay was Jen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Alder Kerr, thank you.
All right, Kathy?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay. Alder Thomas, did you want to address this?
I will. This was discussed at the media committee, and there was a lot of debate about the resolution and not the issue. And so I said, we don't have to vote on the resolution. You can vote on whether we proceed with this. And so at the media committee, they voted to upload and record Zoom meetings for the duration of the time that we have Zoom meetings, and not the closed session portion.
And this is not addressing hybrid meetings, correct?
This is no.
Strictly Zoom meetings. Okay, Alder Wood?
Would this apply to the CDA and the library board? No.
The way it's
City
worked,
committees,
any city committees this would apply to, yes.
Right, but CDA isn't actually a city, it's a separate entity. And the library board is independent by statute also.
well, there's city committees in that the mayor appoints the members.
Okay.
Any other questions? Alder Kur, and then Alder.
So I understand that we've talked about this and beat this with a dead horse for several meetings, but this is the first that we've seen this actual resolution come to the council. I understand that this has gone to community media, but this resolution hasn't come to council except for this one read. I don't see an urgency in getting this done. So I'm frustrated that we decided to move this out of order.
Alder Groupie and then Alder Thomas.
CDA is a public, it's open to the public, correct? I just want to clarify. Okay.
Yes.
That's it. Yep.
Alder Thomas.
This has been going on for, is it months?
Mm-hmm.
And the point is that in a month or two, it will no longer become relevant. And I don't know why it took so long, but it did. And the point is that this is what some have referred to as low-hanging fruit, in that other communities do it, other people do it, and there is no good reason not to do it. It contributes and adds to transparency.
Alder Kur and then Alder Wood.
I'd like to move an amendment forward. I'd like to add some language regarding retention policy, because there's no language regarding retention in the resolution. I move that we retain files for 6 months after the meeting dates, and then those files would be purged. And then any additional deletion from YouTube as necessary.
I'll second.
And is this just for the committee meetings? You're not talking about the council or the...
No, as I understand it, this does not address the council meetings because we already record and post those.
Or plan, correct?
Correct.
I think we do keep them. Is there a second?
I second.
Yeah, the second. Okay. Any further comment on that? Alder Wood.
Yeah, I guess I'm okay with that requirement, as long as it's also, as long as it's consistent with the open records retention requirements.
Alder Kur.
As I understand it, this is not the official record. The official record is still the minutes.
Is correct.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. It's a public record though. So it's still gonna have to be disposed of in accord with the records disposition authorities.
Brian, do you have anything further to say about that?
No, we have to check the state statute on what their requirements are for APE, audiovisual collections. So we'll verify that.
So can we go ahead and vote on this before you check on it?
We can vote subject to.
Because I'd want to check with Bill and I'd want to check with
Is that okay with you, Alder Kur?
Suppose.
Okay. Anyone else? We're talking about the amendment to the resolution. Alder Goforth and then Alder Moore.
I had asked Attorney Cole about that, and he said it was an example of the statutory language not keeping up with technology, and there was no clarification on that.
So he didn't know whether or not we should keep it.
Gray area, basically.
Alder Moore.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I'm supportive of this amendment because I'm appreciative. Again, it has, as we've said all along, it has nothing to do with transparency. But I am appreciative of the fact that, the internet has a very, very, very long shelf life that has come back to bite in one way or another. Individuals, whether it's individuals that come in front of the zoning commission over a neighborhood dispute or neighbor dispute, or a committee member saying something that they might regret or whatever. And so the number of meetings, the 20 some odd committees that we have, and the number of meetings that we have over the course of the year, our YouTube channel would quickly explode beyond our wildest imagination in terms of the volume that we'd be carrying on top of it. So I'm supportive of the amendment.
Alder Thomas and then Alder Goforth.
Brian, a question. I mean, we're not talking about doing this in perpetuity or doing it forever. We're just talking about it for the Zoom meetings. So, Brian, if you had to make an educated guess, how long do you think we will be doing Zoom meetings?
It's like asking me what I think the weather's going to be like tomorrow. You know, I think it's going to come down to level of comfort amongst the committee members in terms of how comfortable they feel meeting in person, those that have chosen to be vaccinated and still, you know, meet in a space that can provide them the ample distancing that they think they may need. We expect to probably get some additional direction from Dane County Public Health as early as tomorrow in terms of an additional order, which could provide some clarity on that. If I had to guess, you know, we would likely be back into in-person meetings before the end of the summer, just given where the cases are. And, you know, the council and the committees themselves can kind of reevaluate their level of comfort as we go along in the summer and see where we're at. But,
yeah, so my point is that this isn't something we're going to do forever. We're going to do it maybe 6 months.
Alder Goforth, did you? And then Alder.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that YouTube has some great abilities to tag videos, to create playlists, to organize, and lots of other cities use YouTube to televise or publicize all of their meetings. So I don't think having a lot of volume on YouTube is an issue. I think that's a moot point. There's already a lot there too.
Alder Groupie.
I don't know if it needs to be an amendment or official language, but I just want to be certain that everyone is notified at the beginning of the meeting that the meeting will be recorded. I think it's typically standard practice. And I look for advice from the rest of the council on whether or not that needs to be official language in the resolution. I think as long as we are clear as a staff and a council, that should be clearly communicated to those in the meeting. I just think it's an important point to make.
Alder Coor.
I also think that residents should be notified if they do any business with the city. For example, I know we were approached by someone who had received a variance for their property several years ago, and the person is a mental health professional, and when she Googles her name, the only place that her name appears is in our minutes associated with her address. And so we need to allow people the ability to know this information before they start to do business with the city, because they may change their mind.
Anyone else? We're still discussing the amendment to the original resolution. Okay, all in favor of the amendment then, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, we are back to the original resolution then. Any further discussion? Alder Wood.
Just a question for, I guess, Alder Thomas. Is the Community Media Committee talking about what we're going to do at the end of COVID? I know there's been talk about doing hybrid meetings, or, you know, sort of how we transition from Zoom, or we just, you know, go all straight back to all in person, or will there still be some type of Zoom or video part to the meetings?
So how the meetings are handled, whether they're in person or on Zoom, is a decision for the council, not for the committee. I think that's not their point. And the recording of them once we are in person, we haven't talked a lot about it, but there's a great deal of concern because it's labor intensive, staff intensive, fiscally intensive. So it's all we addressed is the Zoom meetings.
Right. I was asking about, you know, going forward to find out if, you know, maybe it's not feasible, maybe it's more feasible than we think it is, but I just was hoping that community media committee would talk about it. That's all.
If the topic of going forward, do we record the meetings, we can put that on the agenda and talk about it. But if you do that now, it muddles it up. I mean, the issue was the Zoom meetings, and do we upload those now? What do we do going forward is a whole nother question and another issue that complicates it. And they're two separate, in my opinion, two separate issues.
Right. No, I agree. I was just taking the opportunity to ask about it.
We
Well,
need to
didn't
do a
go
fair
into
amount
that.
of research on that first, I think. Are you planning on, is the committee going to ask Will to do some research on what that might involve, Kathy?
Not unless the council, I mean, that what we were asked was to address the Zoom meetings.
Okay.
We were not asked to address going forward what we would do.
Okay.
If somebody wants that done, then we will take that up. But I was always under the impression in all discussions that we were just talking about the Zoom meetings and not going forward, because there are so many complications in terms of staffing work. How do you handle it?
Okay. All right. Let's all in favor. Did we, Joan, we haven't voted on this, have we actually?
No, we haven't voted on the resolution as amended.
Resolution, right, okay. Yeah, I think that Brian and I will be asking Will to do some research on that, because we need to know, need to have a better idea of what the costs will be. I think we also have to have a better idea of what committees might be hybrid and what might not and whatever. So, okay, all in favor of this resolution, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Final item C, consideration of resolution 21-5-2495, authorizing beer sales by Parks and Recreation staff during special events put forth by the Parks and Recreation Director. Is Jake going to be here, Brian?
He's right there.
Oh, there he is. Okay. Jake?
Well, after this meeting and a year of COVID, I think we're all ready for a beer garden. So yes, Mayor, I've been here the whole time, listening intently. At the May 11th Park and Recreation Board, we proposed offering summer beer gardens. Probably the number one question I've gotten over the last month from residents is, are you going to do beer gardens this summer? So the tides are turning with vaccination rates, guidance on masks from CDC, and what we anticipate is an update tomorrow from Public Health regarding mask wearing outside amongst vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals, and then a new health order. So we are allowed to offer these events. As you've seen now, events are happening in full force across Dane County, and this is something we feel comfortable in doing in our community. And so we'd have one in June, one in July, one in August, and 2 in September.
Questions?
I vote aye. Just gonna,
Yeah,
pre-voting. I'm just gonna vote aye in advance of the, let's do it.
Okay, well, if anyone doesn't have any questions, we'll just move on then. And I assume this will be an easy vote on the next agenda. So we had a couple different things we wanted reports on and discussions. So Brian and I decided to just list them. So the first one is an update on the proposed swimming pool opening plan. I asked Jake if he could just address that, because I've had a lot of questions about what that will involve. And I know Park Board has gone into it in detail, but I think I'd like the rest of the council to hear about it.
Sure. I believe Aquatic Director Miller did send an email out to all elected officials with the opening plan and the schedule for this year. We have taken registrations for season pass sales and swim lessons, with a priority registration for Monona residents and non-residents. Both season pass sales and swim lesson registrations are going incredibly well. We're actually exceeding revenue year to date this year than we were in 2019 when we had a full year. So there's a tremendous appetite to utilize services at the outdoor pool. We did have to change things up at the time of taking it to park board. We were at 50% occupancy we're classified as a business for the outdoor pool. Since then, it's raised to 75%. The caveat is we still have to maintain that 6-foot distancing from non-household members. So we physically cannot do 75% at the outdoor pool if we have to do 6 feet apart from all your family, pods of 2, 4, 6, or whatever it may be. So we are comfortably at 250 people at the outdoor pool, maintaining 6-foot distancing. We have reservation windows open, so it's pre-ticketed, similar to what we did at the Monroe Bank River Rink. None of our open swim slots that we have open, at least for the first 3 weeks, have filled yet. So we don't anticipate there being an issue for people that want to get in to the pool, whether they are a season pass holder or a daily visitor. We'll have issues over the next coming weeks. We will open windows a week at a time. So we have the first 3 weeks, and then starting June 1st, we'll have additional weeks at a time where you can pre-reserve your ticket and your time slot to come to the pool. That way you can't bogart, all the same slots. We have certain time sessions that are only available for pass holders, season pass holders, whether you're a Monona resident or non-resident. And then we have dedicated swim times for some of our aqua fitness, which are typically incredibly popular, and we would not be able to fit all of the typical aqua Zumba, aqua fitness people in the pool with distancing. So we've broken those up into 2 different time slots and had pre-reservation for that. We do anticipate a slight change at the June 1st Park Board's meeting, given the new CDC guidance on mask wearing. I'll be recommending that we do not require a mask on the pool deck while not actively swimming, based on the new guidance that we're getting from CDC. And also that we will have our deck furniture back in pods this year. So you would not have to bring your own chairs, given the latest scientific evidence that COVID transmission isn't happening from touching a bench or a shared pool chair, for example. So those are the 2 that we anticipate seeking approval for on June 1st for our opening on June 5th.
Any questions for Jake? Alder Groupie and then Alder Moore.
Jake, does the fact that the pool furniture no longer is going to be stored in a specific area change anything for scheduling or family swim times, things of that nature?
Not necessarily the swim times. I think the wading pool, the area that we were going to be storing the pool furniture, I think that presents the opportunity to have that open, probably on a limited number of people. We're really hoping, personally hoping that this distancing public health order gets narrowed down or gets eliminated, because everything that we're still doing with the numbers that we're at, the number of fully vaccinated individuals, all is pointing in the right direction. And the challenge for us as operators in complying with the public health order is really this distancing, that we're have to stay in X number of feet apart from people that aren't in your household. And reality of what people are doing at our parks and in facilities outside of Dane County and what the health order are just aren't lining up right now. So I think we are in a spot in this county that it's making us challenging to say, we'd love to open the wading pool and put 30 kids in there like we have in years past, but you have to be 6 feet apart from, your neighbor because you don't live in the same house. And how do we enforce that as staff? And really that comes down to saying like 5 people can go into the wading pool area, or this is the whole reason why we're doing these pre-registered, time slots for swim. But as far as the actual schedule of when the time slots would be, no, I wouldn't anticipate changing that unless the complete health order goes away and we can just go back to operating, as we normally would. Then I think we would revisit that, but not at least in the first couple of weeks that we would be open.
Thank you so much.
Alder Moore, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to actually echo what Alder Groupie was saying in terms of the wading pool, because I know that there was some interest in having some more flexibility there for our young families, time there for our young families. So I appreciate the sensitivity to that and being able to at least get the furniture out of there so that the possibility exists. My second thing was that there also seemed to be concern of kind of prioritizing Monona residents versus non-Monona residents. And I just thought to clarify, if you could, for the record, how we operate on that front, because there seems to be some confusion there in terms of our priorities and potentially non-residents getting higher priority than Monona residents in terms of your passes and the other ways in which you're.
I don't think that's ever been the case of non-residents getting priority. It's the Monona community pool and not the Monona pool. We serve the city of Monona and the surrounding people that like to visit our pool. Those revenues from our non-residents helps keep the tax levy at where it's at. 50% of our daily admissions, 50% of our swim lesson participants are non-residents. We've never had an issue with having priority registration for season passes, whether you're based on residency. We do for park shelter reservations because of a demand and limited supply. With the pool, we anticipated that even with restrictions on attendance, that it still wouldn't be to the point where we would need to limit any segment of people depending on where they live for access to the pool. We do it for swim lessons because there is a limited amount of spots available for swim lessons. So Monona residents do get priority for registration. And after that window ends, then the window opens up for non-residents. But as far as just general admission and swimming of the pool, we are open to everyone, regardless of residency, and we welcome that. We have higher fees for admission and season passes, and those fees are reviewed annually and approved during the budget process by this board.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarity. Again, I'm just responding to residents raising the issue, and I just wanted to provide clarity for people.
Anyone else have any questions? Alder Coor and then Alder Goforth.
I just wanted to mention that I'm very grateful to Jake and Missy for all their work through dealing with the Dane County public health orders and how they have rolled out over the last year. They've been very nimble and very attentive to what the orders are, and they're doing their best to keep Monona citizens safe and following those orders. I want to make it clear that they're not making these things up on their own just for fun. They'd much rather have everything wide open, but we're doing our best to keep our residents safe and our patrons safe. So I really appreciate the thinking on your feet that you guys have to do on a daily basis. And that doesn't sound like that's going to end anytime soon. Fingers crossed, but you know. And I did want to say that you made the first grade share time the other day because one of the kids was over at the park and saw that you're filling the pool, and it was the highlight of the first grade share. So great job.
And I'd like to thank you too for all the creative activities you've come up with. Did I hear that the zoo review is going to be
Zoo is back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, just lots of cool ideas like that. Alder Goforth.
Yeah, I'd heard the reports about the chlorine shortage, but no one ever reported on like if that was going to affect kind of commercial or larger entities. Any concerns there?
No, that's a residential issue. Doesn't affect commercial pools.
Excellent. Thank you.
Anyone
I got
else?
3,000 pounds coming tomorrow, actually.
I was hoping you were stockpiling.
We're all over it, all to go for it. Don't you worry.
Not worried, just clarifying.
Okay, anyone else have any questions for Jake? Well, thanks, Jake. We appreciate it. And we're looking forward to the beer garden. So,
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is discussion on resuming in-person city council meetings. We just thought we'd put it out there and see what people thought. You know, in the municipal room at the library, there's a lot of space to spread out. So I think we could certainly do a meeting with allowing for 6 feet in between people. Does anyone have any thoughts or preferences, Alder Coor?
I'm fine going back to in-person meetings. I do have a question though. Has there been a directive to staff about committee meetings?
Brian?
Not a directive to staff, other than to have a conversation with the committee chairs to gauge level of comfort with the committee members about, you know, how comfortable they are to going back in person. Maybe some committees that aren't quite ready yet to do that, and if that's the case, they can remain on Zoom. But if there is a committee that is comfortable meeting back in person, they can do it. We would suggest that they would schedule to have the meeting in the library meeting room, just so that there is that spacing options available versus, you know, the conference room where there isn't as much space to spread out.
Alder Groupie?
I just wanted to state for the record that I would be disappointed to have to put on real pants or other below the waist attire for these meetings, but I am fine going back to in person.
Okay. Anyone else?
Please, can we please go back?
Okay. The other 3, Alder, go forth. You got something?
Yeah, I guess I want to go back to in person so badly. I have a little hesitancy just knowing that my kids will be alone, but I mean, that's my problem. So just, I have a little hesitancy on that, but I can handle it if that's
the health thing, you're okay.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Okay. Alder Thomas, Alder Wood, do you have any thoughts?
From my perspective, you know, I've had my shots. I'm careful. It's easier. I mean, I like many people, this is easier. I'm going on vacation to California and I can do it. If I can do this meeting in California, but it's not so easy to attend in person when I'm in California. But yeah, I have no concern about meeting.
And if you were in California and we were all at the Muni room, I think Alder Thomas could still attend, couldn't she, Brian? Via Zoom. I mean, we'll just see you up on the screen in front of us. So, Doug, did you have anything?
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with going back, meeting in person. I guess my only thought was, you know, whether would want staff's input on that as well, particularly if they have if they or any members of their family are particularly at risk. But yeah, I'm okay. I should say, I mentioned this before, License Review Committee continued to meet in person. Granted, I mean, there's only 5 of us with 2 staff. And so usually there's been 8 or 9, 10 people in that community media room at the library. And it always felt pretty safe to me. Everybody's been wearing masks and we haven't had to meet every month. There just wasn't, you know, there was nobody asking for licenses. So, and Parks Board, we've had, the last meeting was in person, it was outdoors. And we're planning the June 1 meeting. I believe we're going to be at San Damiano outdoors. So yeah, anyway, yeah, I'm good with going back in person.
Okay. Well, I think we're obviously not going to rush right into it, but we just kind of wanted to get the sense of everybody. And I'm sure Brian will be checking with staff to get their input as well. So thank you all for letting us know what you think. Next, updates, discussion on diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Brian, I think you had a few things to say about this, right?
Just a couple of things. Obviously, you know, since we had last talked about this issue, we've been working very closely with Nehemiah on their assistance for the May 6th event for the police chief candidates. They worked very closely with the PFC members on crafting the questions, and Harry Hawkins did a great job moderating that event. It was good to have them involved in that process. We are kind of working with them, trying to figure out schedules for additional meetings and events this summer. So once I get some more information on kind of their availabilities, I'll know about that. And then I think you might have seen something from the library. They started a Unity project over at the park this weekend, and I think that's going on until the end of the month, if I'm not mistaken. I can clarify that, but that's a nice way to get people talking and out and about in the park and kind of thinking about things that bring us together as community members. So that's what I've got for now.
Okay, yeah, I think they had several different options, date options remaining. Anyone else? Alder Groupie.
After our last meeting with Nehemiah, I made sort of 3 action items for myself, and tonight we accomplished one of them, which was to nominate and confirm Brian Cheney Austin as our new police chief. So I'm very thrilled about that. And I have had very positive discussions with all of the committees on which I sit, senior citizens aside, because we have not yet met, but about placing sort of a standing agenda item about discussions for future actions, legislation, other related conversation to DE and I. So I've been very grateful for the staff's cooperation and sort of their embracing of this idea, and for all of the committee participation and enthusiasm about it. So that's my update.
Okay, anyone else? Alder Moore and then Alder Wood.
I just wanted to report, as was reported at the last meeting, we had a very successful e-cycling event here in Monona, and the final tally was.
Well, this isn't our regular committee reports. This is just about diversity efforts.
Oh, sorry.
We're going to have those later.
Yep.
As a separate. So did you have anything to report on
No,
diversity
I'm
efforts?
good. I'm good.
Okay.
Also
Alder
grateful
Wood.
for the new hire, obviously.
Alder Wood, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, after the last meeting and going through the baseline assessment from Nehemiah, I decided I would reach out to the various department heads and some other city staff to see sort of what is it they would like me to know or like us to know in general, and more specifically to talk about the DEI and the efforts in Nehemiah process and sort of what they think. And I'm doing them with the understanding that the individual discussions, somebody will be confidential, but that, sort of what if I come up with some conclusions that I would, share those. And Brian and Mary were both aware that I was doing this effort. So I've got appointments, I think, with everybody, either had them or set up, except for the police department, because I'm kind of waiting to see, not sure who I should talk to there. So that's it.
Anyone else? Alder Coor.
I have the dates for the Unity project that Brian mentioned. So it's Tuesday 4 to 7, Thursday 4 to 7, and Saturday 10 to 1.
Does it end this weekend then?
Yes.
Ah, okay. Anyone else? Alder Goforth.
I'll just add that I have been sharing the Nehemiah assessment with my committees. I think that's especially thinking about transit as a fundamental need for all people. That's, I think, a really important document for us all to start considering and thinking about, and working to making improvements.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, Brian and I think we've reached out to some additional people to let them know about the DEI committee, and we're still accepting applications through the 26th, I think. So if any of you know anyone who you think would be interested or would be good that you could talk to about submitting an application, please do so. I think I've got 11 or 12 so far. So we'll keep you updated on that. Next, we will move on to committee reports. So Alder Moore, since you're all ready, we'll
Yeah, sorry, apologies.
That's okay.
I had to step away for a second. So yes, I reported at the last meeting around the e-cycling event that the Sustainability Committee held, and there's a much more detailed listing of how much Freon and how many TVs and all that, and how many pounds of electronics, but overall it was 17,147 pounds
Oh,
of electronics and appliances that were recycled, which by all accounts is a gigantic success. 203 cars. And just as one data point, just in Freon alone, it was 1,589 pounds of Freon that was recycled. So good stuff for the environment. Thank you again to the citizens of Monona for participating. We will definitely do it again, although it'll be a hard number to surpass. So huge success. It's at over 17,000 pounds.
Alder Wood.
The only thing, well, we had the May License Review Committee meeting, which has lots of all the many renewals. Parks Board met a B-cycle meeting. Actually, Alder Groupie chaired the meeting because I was still at the License Review meeting. So I'll let her talk about that if she wants to.
Okay.
Thank you, Alderwood. It was a great meeting. The B cycles were a lot of fun, and we got to gabbing so much that we didn't quite get to the full parks tour that we had envisioned for the evening. But basically, we talked about future projects, potential capital budget items, and just sort of the master plan for our parks future. And it was really refreshing to hear some of the innovative and, pulled from different nations and different group, the ideas that we are trying to cultivate from other sources to try to make Monona a little bit more current with its practices and maybe exploring some new techniques to mitigate climate change, involve the community, et cetera. So more to come on that, but it was a very great and productive time and just the perfect evening. We were standing out on the observation deck at Winnequa Park, and a great blue heron just flew, right past the group and settled on the, the shoreline. And we thought that Jake had sort of somehow paid somebody, planned it to have the bird release so that it could just really cap off the evening. So it was pretty incredible. But yeah, I'm excited to hear the conversation to continue.
Alder, go for it.
Yeah, our landmarks meeting was canceled for May. I covered for transit last week, and we are just wrapping up our survey, which will go out. We're expecting the June city newsletter. Hopefully we can have that link posted on the city's website as well. That survey is going to be more targeted toward our non-riders and figuring out why they're not riding, what might get them to ride. There will be a few questions for riders, but primarily focusing on non-riders.
Thank you, Alder Kur.
Library board meets tomorrow night. Brian kind of stole my thunder with the Unity project, but it's okay. I'm glad it's out there, and it's even neat if you don't participate, if you just drive by. It's beautiful in the park, so check it out.
Alder Thomas.
There's a public safety meeting on the 26th, but this Friday, the new police chief is being interviewed by WVMO. Is Will still on?
Yep, I think so.
Will, are you still on? If so, do you know the time on Friday?
I don't know if he's able to, because he's streaming the meeting through this. I don't know if he's able to turn on his camera.
I will, I'll send out an email to people on the timing on it, because I think the community would be interested in hearing the interviews. So if you would share it on Facebook, that would be good.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, City Administrator Gatto.
Alder Group.
Sorry, I didn't take up my full time because I was just getting kicked to the park meeting. So I just wanted to say a couple other things. Sorry. One is the Sustainability Committee is looking for more, as we refer to them, sustainability champions for our sort of story map about different individuals in the community who have either taken on or completed projects related to environmentalism, eco-friendly and actions, rain barrels, solar panels, LEED architecture, anything that you feel would be sort of the, a mark that you would like to share and explain and describe to other members of the community. So if you on the council or, people that have been involved in projects such as these, please direct them to the Sustainability Committee so that we can collaborate with them and MG21 and add to our story map with our interview process and description of the projects. And then just a minor personal note, I had a reminder pop up on Facebook the other day about Alder Corr being selected for the interim council position that Mayor O'Connor left open when she was elected to the position of mayor. So I wanted to congratulate her on the anniversary of that because I think it was a pretty big deal and very inspiring to me, certainly, and hopefully to others in the community. But happy anniversary to Alder Corr about that.
That was quite a process.
Thank you. 4 years.
Yeah. Okay, now, well, I guess I should let Brian, I'm going to have you hold a minute. City Clerk Andrews, did you have anything to?
I have no report except briefly that at the next meeting for the council, June 7th, you will be reviewing all of the liquor license renewals. So get ready to look at a bunch of stuff.
Interim Chief Duman, did you have anything? Oh, you're on mute.
I don't have a lot, just kind of similar to last time. We still continue to have a lot of crashes on the Beltline during the construction in the evening. So if you can avoid that area in the evenings when they're dropping down to the 1-lane traffic. And other than that, we again met with Chief Cheney Austin this last week, both Lieutenant Weigel and I, and are both looking forward to his start date on June 1st.
Great, and thank you again, Sarah, for all the work you've done over the last 6 months. Appreciate it. City Administrator Gatto.
Thank you. I just have one item for you tonight. I was asked to give kind of an update on the American Rescue Plan Act and how that impacts the city of Monona. So if you recall, the city of Monona is scheduled to receive at least a preliminary estimate, a total of $810,000 as part of this act. That money would be split out over the course of 2 years. We don't know the exact date at which we would receive that first section of money, which would be about $410,000 or $405,000. We're not, it said sometime this spring, there's not a date certain, so we'll keep our eyes out for that. My thought would be, so the U.S. Department of Treasury has just released their interim final rule, which is kind of the specific guidelines for how those funds can be allocated and what type of things they can be used for. That document is 151 pages, so I'm still making my way through that and what that may mean, but they have at least 6 kind of different big picture buckets that the money could be used for, including supporting public health related expenditures experienced by COVID-19, addressing negative economic impacts caused by the public health emergency. That one is cast a little bit more broadly in terms of small business and households, replacing lost public sector revenue, providing premium pay for essential workers, and investing in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure being a couple of the different main buckets that are eligible. So my thoughts on this topic are a couple-fold. One, when we do receive that first section of money, my recommendation would be that we establish a separate sinking fund just for that fund so that that money can be put there. And then that would allow us the opportunity for the city council to have a conversation about how would they like to use that money and in what manner. But having it in a separate sinking fund allows us to kind of track any expenditures from an accounting standpoint. There's a separate fund where that money would sit so that we would know that, could kind of figure out where it would be transferred to and how it would be spent. Second, once we get a chance to better understand the interim final rule from Department of Treasury, I would provide you with kind of an analysis of that and some different options for you to consider as kind of some fodder for discussion for the council to provide feedback on how we'd like to set up kind of the guidelines for how the city would like to use that money. That would be a conversation that would happen probably later this summer once we have kind of a more fuller understanding of how the federal regulations are going to impact those funds. We are, along with our colleagues in the League of Wisconsin Municipalities and Dane County Cities and Villages Association, we're all three entities are going through this document at the same time. So we will also kind of lean on some of their guidance in terms of kind of the legal standpoint, and we'll make that available to the council as well when we get to that point for that discussion. So those are just kind of some of my initial thoughts. Again, I don't know that there's a rush or should be a rush to kind of figure out how to expend these monies. This is, as we've talked about before, this is a big deal, and we want to make sure we do this the right way. So I think it's prudent for us to be deliberate on how we figure out our plan going forward. So sinking fund, having it sit there until we've got a more defined plan, I think is the best course of action, at least right now. So,
Brian, would you confirm the money does not have to be expended until 2025, correct? So it's not that we have to do it tomorrow.
Yeah, 2024 is the date. So yeah, there's plenty of time for the city to figure out how and where and all those things. So it's not like something that has to be addressed before the end of this year. We have time to make sure we can get the way that the council sees fit.
Okay, anyone have any questions? As Brian said, we don't know a lot more than that at this point, but it will all become clear eventually, hopefully.
We hope, but Treasury and IRS, you know how reading those documents are.
Right.
It's more questions than answers. So.
Yeah. Okay, I guess then the only thing, as Jake mentioned, there's supposed to be, I was listening in on the Dane County Emergency Management meeting this afternoon, and they did say there'll be new updates tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see. They say that they are taking into consideration what the CDC put out last week. So who knows how they'll interpret that, but we'll wait and see. But it could make a big difference in how we do things here. The next meeting is June 7th, which means it's 3 weeks from now. So we have a little bit of a break. And the next newsletter, I think, is scheduled to be released on Wednesday. So watch for that. We have one appointment, Colleen Flaherty to the Tourism Commission, effective immediately through April 19th of 2022. Is there a motion to approve that?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.